Hi everyone, welcome back to GoLocal Live. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for tuning in this Friday afternoon as we kick off your weekend. I want to thank Ray Rickman, Bob Whitcomb, Pete Duffett with the Manton Avenue Project. We're going to finish up with some politics. John Donegan, Cranston City Councilman, thank you so much for coming all the way to the city.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate your coming in because the Cranston City Council is looking, like a lot of cities and towns across the state and country, at the potential for a plastic bag ordinance. Now, I believe it's called the Cranston Plastic Reduction Ordinance.
Yes, that is correct.
So talk a little bit about the impetus behind this. Obviously, I'm sure looking at other cities and towns as examples and working across the aisle as well to put this together.
Yeah, so when I was running, I thought this would be a good idea. We've seen other municipalities in Rhode Island take this measure. It's important to protect our environment, and I'm incredibly grateful that we've been able to do this in a bipartisan way with the council majority leader, Christopher Papalauskas. We had actually both introduced our own ordinance within 24 hours of one another. We realized this, we met for coffee, got together and put the best parts of both of our ordinances together and submitted it to what we have now and what we'll discuss Thursday night in our ordinance committee meeting.
So tell us a little bit about the nuts and bolts of it, what a rollout of this would look like, because that's really where the rubber meets the road.
Absolutely.
Especially when you get public input pertaining to it, how it impacts stores, how it impacts consumers. So give us a little bit about what that hybrid piece, that ordinance looks like now, as you said, taking the best parts.
Absolutely. So first of all, it wouldn't go into effect or it wouldn't be enforced until the first of the next year.
Okay.
So it's going to give businesses plenty of time to change their operations and prepare for this change. Essentially what it will be is that at the point of sale for businesses, you won't be able to get that thin single-use plastic bag. Mm-hmm. This isn't prohibiting someone from going to a market and picking up chicken and putting it in that container, that plastic bag, or loose vegetables or nuts or anything like that. That's totally fine.
Okay, so plastic bags in supermarkets still exist, like for the produce, as you said.
Yes, exactly.
When you put your onions in, you pull it off and you tear it. Okay.
Right. We don't want people's raw chicken and their onions getting mixed up. We don't need any salmonella poisoning. We're just talking about at the point of sale. That will drastically reduce the amount of garbage in our city. It'll drastically reduce the amount of plastic that's entering the Patuxent River, that's being collected on the side of our bike paths, in our neighborhoods, on roadways, in our wooded areas, Mashantucket Lake. It's going to drastically reduce all of that.
And so let's talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts. Thursday, let's talk about the introduction to potentially a passage.
So right now, it is co-sponsored by 4 members. So honestly, I am optimistic that it will pass out of committee, and I think that it will pass on the council. The question is whether or not our mayor, Mayor Fung, will veto it, at which point we would need 6 votes to override that. That's probably a bigger hill to climb. It's something that we still need to, flesh out in an ordinance and get the thoughts from the rest of the committee members. I know that others have expressed some concerns how it will impact business, and I think that we can address some of those things in council, in the committee meetings. We'll take the input from the community, both constituents, business owners, of course from the administration, and people that might be opposed to this. I think that we can find a common middle ground to get something passed that will protect and help our environment in Cranston.
Have you had conversations with the mayor about this?
I have not personally spoken with Mayor Fung about it, no.
So you don't know how he would approach this particular piece of legislation?
Well, I know that the day after Chris and I had put forward the ordinance, Mayor Fung was on Rhode Island Public Radio, and he did oppose it. That's okay. He's well within his right to do so, and I hope for a constructive conversation with him about it come the committee meeting.
So with this focus on Thursday with the committee meeting, would you say this is sort of the big focus of yours at the moment? And what else would you like folks to know about council work while we have you here in Providence?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was elected for the first time this past November. I've been a lifelong Cranston resident. And so working now on the council, there are a few other items that I have proposed. The first thing I did was taking what my constituents wanted, and they felt that the council could be more open, more transparent. People could have a greater voice and access to what's actually going on in the city. And so the first piece of legislation that I proposed in the Cranston City Council was to film all public meetings. That way people have access to them. A lot of people can't get to meetings because they're working a second job at night. They're taking care of family members. So that's one thing that I'm going to continue to push forward. I know that the administration said it will be included in the budget.
Oh, fantastic.
Hopefully we see that come through. If not, I think it needs to be codified
Okay.
in Cranston Code. Another thing that I've introduced were welcome packets. Not everyone in Cranston is as fortunate enough as I to be a lifelong Cranston resident. And so I think we can welcome people into the city by sending them information on who their elected officials are, how to register to vote. We need to get more people out to vote. Some of the great services we have in Cranston in the programs, the Park and Recs Department, the schools, our local businesses. Sending people information about all of those things. That way when they come into the city, they know all that we have to offer because it's such a great city and we have so many great programs. And what else could we include in that? Maybe a reusable bag.
Going back again to this proposed ordinance, again, going to committee on Thursday. We'll provide links to that as well. We'll continue to follow it in Cranston because, as we've seen, it's a town-to-town battle,
Yes.
and all politics are incredibly local.
Absolutely.
So, John Donegan with the Cranston City Council, I so appreciate your taking the time to come
Thank
in
you.
today. We appreciate your watching. Be sure to check in with GoLocal Prov online and, of course, on Facebook over the weekend. And if you missed it this morning, Laura Afonso was live from the New England Outdoor Living and Garden Show at the Waterfire Art Center. She had 3 guests this morning. She'll be back there tomorrow previewing what's in store for folks who are interested in that. It was a beautiful space. Be sure to check that out. And we'll be sure to catch you next Monday when Josh Fenton is back here in studio.